Maria was 18 when her parents told her she would marry a man almost twice her age. She stood in silence as her father explained that the rancher had helped pay off their debt and that this marriage was the only way to save their family. Her heart felt heavy, but she did not argue. In her small town, girls rarely had choices. Obedience was expected, and she was taught that duty came before dreams. Jacob, the widowed rancher, was known for his quiet nature. He had lost his wife 2 years earlier and had 3 small children to raise alone. People said he was a good man, hardworking and kind, but cold since his wife's death. Maria had seen him only a few times at the town market. He always looked serious with a calm face and tired eyes. The day of the wedding arrived quickly. Maria wore a simple white dress her mother had stitched from leftover fabric. The small church was filled with curious faces, whispering about the strange match. Some pitied her, others judged Jacob. But when she looked up at him during the ceremony, she saw no cruelty, only loneliness. After the vows, they returned to his ranch in a horse-drawn wagon. The vast land stretched endlessly with fields of dry grass glowing under the setting sun. The house looked big and lonely with toys scattered on the porch. Inside, it smelled of wood smoke and old memories. Maria tried to hide her fear. That night, Jacob surprised her. He didn't act like a man who had just been given a young bride. Instead, he spoke softly. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "You'll have your own room. You can take your time to get used to things here." His words calmed her heart a little. The next morning, Maria woke up early. She didn't know what to do, so she started cleaning. The house was dusty, the dishes piled up, and the children's clothes were scattered everywhere. She worked quietly until the oldest boy, Samuel, walked in and stared at her. He was around 10 and didn't say a word. The younger ones, Anna and Emma, followed him, watching her with curious eyes. They didn't know what to call her, and she didn't know what to say. For the first few days, the air around the house felt heavy. The children missed their mother. They often sat quietly, and at night Maria could hear them crying softly. She wanted to comfort them, but she was unsure how. One morning, the youngest, Emma, went missing. She was only 5. The whole house panicked. Jacob rushed outside calling her name. Maria ran through the fields, her heart racing. She found Emma near a small stream behind the barn, sitting and crying because she had lost her doll. Without thinking, Maria hugged her tightly and promised she would never let her wander alone again. When they returned, Jacob saw the way Emma clung to Maria's dress, refusing to let go. That was the first time he smiled at Maria. It was small but warm, and she felt something change between them. From that day, things began to improve. Maria started cooking meals that reminded the children of their mother: warm bread, vegetable soup, and honey cakes. She sang to them at night, her soft voice filling the quiet house. The children began to open up. Emma often followed her around the house, calling her Mama by mistake, and Maria never corrected her. Jacob watched all of this quietly. He noticed how Maria worked tirelessly, how she comforted his children, and how her presence brought a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. One evening, he joined her in the kitchen while she was baking bread. "You're doing more for them than I ever could," he said quietly. She smiled shyly, unsure how to respond. Life on the ranch wasn't easy. Maria woke up before dawn to help with the animals, milk the cows, and gather eggs. Her hands became rough from work, but she didn't complain. Every evening, she sat with the children to teach them their lessons. Slowly, the house that once echoed with sadness began to feel alive again. Yet not everyone in town accepted their marriage. Some people whispered behind her back, saying Maria was only a poor girl trying to secure her future. Others said the rancher had taken advantage of her youth. She heard the words when she went to the market, but she never replied. She focused on her new family instead. One afternoon, a storm rolled over the ranch. The wind howled, rain poured, and thunder shook the windows. The youngest children grew scared and clung to Maria. Jacob came in from the barn, soaked, and saw her holding them close, whispering soothing words. That image stayed in his mind long after the storm passed. He realized he didn't just respect her. He cared deeply for her. In time, Maria also began to see the good in Jacob. He wasn't a man of many words, but he was gentle. He treated his workers fairly, worked beside them in the fields, and always thanked her for the meals she made. When she got sick once from exhaustion, he stayed up all night beside her bed, making sure she had water and warmth. The days turned into months, and the months into a year. Maria's fear faded. The children started calling her Mama without hesitation. Even the townspeople began to notice the change in Jacob. He laughed again, spoke kindly, and attended church with his family every Sunday. People whispered again, but this time with surprise. Maria had been given away to a man she didn't know, to a house that wasn't hers, and to a life she never imagined. Yet through patience, kindness, and quiet strength, she turned that life into something beautiful. Every morning, when she looked out at the golden fields and heard the laughter of the children, she felt peace in her heart. She no longer thought of the past or what people said. She had found her place, not by choice but by grace. And when Jacob met her eyes at the dinner table, both of them smiled with an unspoken understanding. They had begun as strangers bound by duty, but what grew between them was something no one had expected, something stronger than tradition or fear. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was theirs. And that was enough. Months passed peacefully on the ranch, and Maria's life slowly filled with color. The mornings no longer began with fear, and the nights no longer ended in silence. The children had grown attached to her. Emma followed her everywhere. Samuel began helping her with chores, and Anna often talked with her while folding laundry. The house that once felt empty now echoed with laughter and the smell of fresh bread. Jacob noticed every small change. He had never expected the young girl, brought into his life through a deal to heal the wounds left by the past. Each day she brought new life into the ranch. She cared for the animals, taught the children manners, and even planted flowers near the porch. When the flowers bloomed, Jacob would sometimes pause during his work to admire them and her. But Maria's journey wasn't easy. There were still days when she felt uncertain about her place. She wondered if the townspeople still whispered behind her back. Sometimes, while hanging laundry under the bright sun, she thought about the life she might have had, if she had been allowed to choose. But when Emma's little arms wrapped around her waist calling her name, the doubts faded away. She had found meaning in caring for others, and that brought her peace. Jacob treated her with quiet respect. He never raised his voice and always listened carefully when she spoke. When she made mistakes in managing ranch work, he didn't scold her. He only said, "We'll do better next time." Over time, Maria learned more about him, his patience, his honesty, and the deep pain he still carried for his late wife. She realized he had never truly healed until now. One evening, while they were fixing a broken fence together, Jacob stopped and said softly, "You've done more for this ranch than I ever expected. I don't think I ever thanked you." His voice was filled with genuine warmth. Maria smiled shyly and replied, "You don't have to thank me. This is my home now, too." The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. They stood silently for a while, side by side, as the cool wind moved across the field. That silence said more than words ever could. In time, their bond grew stronger. They shared meals together, talked about the children, and laughed over small things. Jacob started helping her in the kitchen, even though he wasn't very good at it. The children teased him, and Maria couldn't help but laugh. For the first time in years, the ranch felt full of warmth. One Sunday, Maria decided to attend church with the family. It was her first time walking through town since the wedding without fear. The townspeople watched her as she entered with Jacob and the children. Whispers began again, but Maria held her head high. During the service, she felt calm, even when she noticed familiar faces staring. After the service, the pastor invited people to share something about gratitude. Maria stood up slowly. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "I came to this town as a girl who had no say in her own life," she said softly. "I was given away to a man I didn't know, but what I found wasn't pain or regret. I found a family. I found kindness. And I found peace." The church was silent. Even those who had judged her lowered their eyes. That day, people saw her differently. They no longer called her the poor girl who was traded for debt. They began calling her the woman who changed a man's life. When they returned home, Jacob looked at her with deep emotion in his eyes. "You didn't have to say that," he whispered. "You've already done enough." Maria smiled gently. "I wanted them to know the truth," she replied. "I'm not ashamed of how my life began. It brought me here." That night, after the children had gone to sleep, they sat together on the porch. The stars shone brightly above, and the sound of crickets filled the quiet air. Jacob turned to her and said, "You don't owe me anything, Maria. You've already given this family more than I could ever give back." But I would be proud if you stayed not out of duty but because you want to." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I already chose to stay," she said softly. "This is where I belong." From that night on, something changed. There was still respect, still patience, but now there was understanding too. They no longer lived as strangers sharing a home. They lived as a true family. Maria continued caring for the children, and Jacob worked tirelessly on the ranch, always making sure she never had to carry the heavy burdens alone. Seasons changed, and so did life on the ranch. The crops grew well, the animals multiplied, and laughter never left the house. The children grew happier and stronger. Emma, who once cried for her late mother every night, now ran around the fields with a wide smile. She often told her friends at school that her new mama made the best pies in the county. One afternoon, while helping Samuel with his schoolwork, Maria realized how far they had all come. There was no fear, no sadness, only calm joy. She looked out the window and saw Jacob returning from the fields. Dust on his clothes, but a smile on his face. That simple sight filled her with warmth. Years later, when people spoke of the rancher and his young wife, they didn't talk about the debt or the strange marriage. They talked about how that house became a home again, how laughter returned to a place once filled with sorrow, and how love can grow quietly between two people who never planned for it. Maria never sought attention. She didn't think of herself as brave or special. She only believed in kindness, patience, and hard work. But her story spread through the small town, and people often told their daughters, "See that woman? She turned pain into peace. She built happiness where there was none." Jacob and Maria continued their life together side by side. Every evening they sat on the same porch watching the sun sink behind the hills. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. Words were no longer needed. Their hearts understood each other perfectly. Maria thought about her journey often. She remembered the frightened girl who once arrived at this ranch unsure of her future. That girl had grown into a woman who found strength in love and purpose in care. Life hadn't given her what she wanted, but it gave her what she needed. The townsfolk were right about one thing. What happened truly shocked them all. Not because of drama or tragedy, but because of how quietly love can change everything. No one expected that a girl given away out of duty would end up teaching everyone what real love looks like. Not in grand words or gestures, but in the simple act of staying, caring, and healing. Maria's story became one of hope. People who visited the ranch always left feeling lighter, as if they had touched a place where goodness still lived. And as long as she and Jacob were there, that goodness never faded. Every sunrise began with new laughter, and every sunset ended with peace. And that was all Maria ever wanted.